Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show. If you want to feel the wind blowing through your hair and see the great city of Nashville at the same time, check out Nashville Scooter Tours. Trekking through the downtown streets to Music Row with Nashville Scooter Tours is safe, eco-friendly, and a whole lot of fun. They use Xenon electric scooters that go 55 miles on a single charge. Find out more by calling 615-290-5563 or book your reservation today at NashvilleScooterTours.com.
The biggest Fairgrounds racing story of the year broke earlier this week right here on Talkapolis with the announcement of Project Nashville Skyline. That showed a lot of development, but not a lot of racetrack. Could that change? Hi, I'm Joe Williams, and coming up next, Larry Woody and I will visit with Isaac Tigrett, the man behind what's coming up at the Fairgrounds, we think. Stay with us. It's coming up next on Pit Pass.
From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com. Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short-track, door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Joe Williams, and welcome to Pit Pass. Along with my idol here, Larry Woody, we're honored today to have a special guest, Isaac Tigrett, who is the push, the brains, the guy behind what was announced, and it's kind of a bombshell. Larry, I called it a bombshell earlier. The Project Nashville Skyline proposal for redevelopment at Nashville's State Fairgrounds. And Isaac, welcome in.
Thank you.
Man, that's a lot of stuff you're trying to put on one spot.
Well, you know, I'm from Jackson, Tennessee, and my partner over there, Swan Burris, called me. I live in India and have for a number of years working on a project there, and said, look, the city needs you. We need to redevelop the fairgrounds. He didn't tell me it was such a hot potato for 5 years until I got here. But so I had nothing to work with but Google Earth maps, and I had one conversation with, I think, Mr. Dozier, who was running the thing down there, and I said, look, the only way I can see this thing working is keeping what is there, for lots of different reasons. One is nostalgia, because what I could research, I could find out that a lot of people wanted to have it rehabbed, not moved somewhere else, which is one plan, not torn down. I think there were several different plans put up by the mayor and other people that the council couldn't pass or whatever reason. And when I started looking at it, I said, well, the only way you can do this economically and still keep the nostalgia and sort of give it new life is to use the existing facility as it is now. Now, the one thing, and if you go on to my website, Nashville-Skyline.com, you'll see the first picture is a picture of the racetrack in 1974, is the very first picture. The history of that place has been racing since the last century. I mean, the leading trotters we were talking earlier is buried in the middle of the racetrack. I believe it's in the middle of the racetrack. I have no idea where it's buried.
Well, it's actually turned 3 now because the track used to be a mile long and it got shortened, yeah.
But I mean, the one thing, because I didn't have the luxury of coming here and talking to people and seeing what's going on and understand the politics, because the politics are a bit different in India where I am. A little bit more corrupt, but maybe not. Anyway, all I had to go on was really these Google Earth map pictures, and having started the Hard Rock Cafe and the House of Blues, knew what the value would be, because it's called Music City, and it made a lot of sense to put a lot of venues there. I think there's been a disconnect with a lot that Nashville is, with sort of the leading crowd. When I used to come up here as a kid, people turned their nose down at racing and country music stars and all this type of stuff. They didn't understand it. The same thing in Memphis. They didn't like Elvis Presley. They didn't like Stax Records. They didn't like Sam Phillips. They didn't like, he was a rebel, a true rebel. I was a pallbearer at his funeral. I swear he was yelling inside. Like he always did. But that's changed now. You know, people are starting to accept that this is part of the culture. And racing has always been, that's been a main part of that culture since Andrew Jackson had his horses down there. You know, so.
Isaac, I know this is an idea in progress, but just basically, what are some of your proposals if things worked out that you would like to see at the fairgrounds, and how does the racetrack and racing fit in?
Let's take a look at some.
Okay,
We've got pictures of some.
And Isaac can talk while we're looking.
All right, good enough.
A couple of the things that we've pulled up from the What's Up Nashville program here on Talkapolis, where the entire thing was kind of laid out. By the way, you can still get that one online with Isaac and Swan. But let's look at just a few of the slides that we pulled out this morning, because there's a couple of things that we'd like to see. Here's kind of where we are now, some of the dimensions, and everybody's going to recognize, I think, the Wilson building also at times has been known as, or to across the street, the old women's building, which at one time was the biggest.
Exhibitors buildings is what they're used for.
Yeah.
And the shearing shed, I believe, is right behind there.
Exactly. The popular shearing shed.
Yeah. This is kind of what you're looking for, the concept on top of the hill, as I call it.
I'm glad you pointed out that I didn't know there was a hill until I got here into Nashville. Yeah, well, the idea was to take all the existing buildings and to rehab them. I've been building these things all over the world, and when I went in there, I saw those I-beams and those beams they've got in. I mean, you could drop an atomic bomb on that place, and those beams would still stand. So it makes rehab really easy work in construction. I've now had the luxury of going through all the buildings, and I'm even more excited than ever. There's no reason to tear them down and start with something new or try to do that sort of thing.
Charitable trust.
Yeah. I have been, my whole life has been spent with musicians. As I said earlier, I've seen more dawns than I've had hot dinners in my life. And they have a tough time. They have no annuities when they get old. They don't have insurance. And I've been involved in lots of charitable work to help them. And I thought that it would be great to set up, this exactly is a car museum, but a trust that was in partnership with this. And we came up with a formula which is on the Talkapolis piece and so forth of how to finance it. But this particular thing is a trust that's put together. It's a 501c3 to help musicians. And there's 30,000 of them in the town and people involved and so forth.
Is the structure we're looking at, Isaac, is that a concert arena?
On the left, with the United Trust, that is now one of the exhibiting buildings right now. It exists.
And under your plan, proposal, idea, what would it be? Would it be a concert arena?
No, sir. It would be an exotic car museum.
But behind that, you've got a bunch of restaurants, opportunities to
I've taken all the sheds and so forth and tried to, like the Tennessee 3, which is back there. I'm really excited about that because that's to honor the Tennessee 3, which is two guys from Jackson, Tennessee, which I knew, named Carl Perkins and Mr. Holland and Johnny Cash. That was his original band. And so I wanted to call and honor this. And also the original Blues Brothers band from Memphis, which was really Booker T and the MGs, the famous Steve Cropper, Duck Dunn, Willie Hall, Matt Guitar Murphy, and so forth. So this is, you're dealing with music, you're dealing with Music City. So, being over in India, knowing what I did about Nashville, I thought, well, they need a music or entertainment destination.
Sorry to keep interrupting. I'm curious about this. Where would there be a music entertainment venue, Isaac, as part of this plan where people would go to attend concerts?
Oh, there's 13 stages altogether.
So that's what I'm saying. This is part of the
Tennessee
concert.
3. I mean, the Tennessee 3 building is now known as the Vaughn Building. Yeah. That thing is 340 feet long. We're going to have the world's longest bar in that place, 3 stages, and Bozo's, which is, I don't know if you know the famous Bozo's Hot Pit Barbecue, which is on Highway 70 between Brownsville and Memphis, which is the oldest barbecue restaurant in the world, built in 1923 by Thomas Jefferson Bozo Williams.
Wow. No relation.
No,
but no relation.
About what would be the seating for the concert part of it, Isaac?
Well, the way the music scene works is you start off, you sign an act, they don't have a following. They usually start in small venues and small clubs. If they get a following, they have a hit record, or they gain a following the next time there were so many tickets, so you can go up to a 500-seater. And then every band, there's a book called Polestar that will tell you how many tickets every band is good for in that town, that market. So you had to have a series from small venues for 100 up to 300, 500, 1,500, and 2,000. And then we've got a proposal for even a new concert hall for about 4,000 or 5,000 people.
And I want to go back to that last slide one more time. And this is Isaac, I think the biggest question that I've got. If we can get that other slide. Yeah. Now, as we look at this, understanding what we think is the layout, you've got office buildings in here. You've got what is known, I guess, as a pod hotel, small rooms.
Sure.
They do them around the world. Folks around here are going to think we're nuts, but it is expected elsewhere. My biggest concern, kind of top center there, you can see the outline of the current racetrack, and I believe that on top, what looks like it's on top of it, is the biggest or the largest of the music venues and a broadcast center, etc. And I guess that's the biggest thing we want to know today. Just how set in stone is this? Because this is Pit Pass. This is racing in Middle Tennessee. And partner, that sure looks like the racetrack is not going to be usable.
Well, I'll tell you something very interesting about that. I had a Japanese chap that was doing this, and then when he would do them on a certain size computer, and then when we had to format them to fit every computer, we had to stretch everything in every direction. So as you can see, it sort of looks crooked as well. Yeah. As far as the racing is concerned, I mean, do I qualify if I read Hemmings Motor News every month since I was a kid? Yes. Do I qualify because I had a 40 Ford Coupe with a T83 bored out to 301 with a Hurst mystery shifter, solid lifters, and a 411 rear end, and dual Weber carburetors? Yes.
Okay. He passed.
I think you can make it.
Do I not go to Talladega and back Jimmy Johnson when nobody knew him? Sorry, I know you're upset about that one, brother.
If I understand correctly, you're saying that racing does fit into your plan.
It's always been there. Yeah. I mean, I came here with Swan, who was kind enough to ask me to get involved with this, and we really shifted our whole crew off this project I'm working on in India right now, and to do this, and a lot of midnight oil went into it, and for me it was a labor of love. I've said that publicly, and it is, but it's just a proposal. You know, I got down here and I went, oh my God, this is an atom bomb. It's already gone off about 50 times. Nobody knows who's in charge, which council, Metro, this one, that one.
Yeah, this is about as basic can get right now. You're just kind of feeling your way through it.
I am.
Have you met with any officials from Metro to at least kind of toss this out, Isaac, and say this is just a real general idea?
Yeah, the only person that we've met with, and we thought it was respectful and important to go to the people that run the fairgrounds now, Mr. Dozier and his crew. And when I talked to him several times on the phone, because I didn't want to do this if it was something that nobody wanted.
If they just said flat said it's not doable, that would be the end of it.
Absolutely.
But so far he's been pretty receptive.
Oh, he was fantastic. And I mean, I talked to him for about an hour the first time on the phone from India. And I sort of started going over my ideas that you've got to keep the buildings that are there. You've got to rehab them because it's time for a whole new idea. You've got to bring in something new and make it a destination. And you've got to make money. You just don't throw more civic money at a project whether you don't even know if it's going to ever bring a dime back. And I'm in the money business. I wouldn't have had all these places. So I approached it basically on the advice of Buck and his crew of what to do. And then when we came here, Swan and I went and presented it to Buck and his crew and said, you know, is this doable? Is this something? Did we leave something out? And we found out that he had some suggestions. For instance, he said, well, you know, they're looking for a new home for the farmers market. Perhaps this could be great, fantastic. We'll add the farmers market. You know, I know that they have, one of the trouble with that property is the floodplain. 1/3 of the property is unusable because of the floodplain. Well, you can cure that with culverts and so forth and gain another 40 acres to expand that whole thing with lots more. I mean, you're talking about that's 1/3 of the entire property. And then I thought, well, you know, this would, and I walked down the Brown Stream and I saw that there was great foliage there and this beautiful stream, and so this would make a great walkway. And
I live on Browns Creek.
Oh, do you?
And again, we're getting maybe a little ahead of ourselves, but I think the viewers would be interested, Isaac. would your idea be a partnership with the city, with Metro? Would it be private investment? Would it be some of both? Or are you open to discussing and see where everybody would line up?
I'm an idea man. I didn't come down here with a bunch of money to talk to some guy that had 120 acres and say, hey, I'm going to put this money down, buy this thing, goodbye. I came down here and stepped into this amazing football game that's going on. As I said, as a labor of love. You know, it's what the people want. It's their place. It's their nostalgia. It means different parts of it means a lot to everyone else. The state fair, they're talking about moving the state fair to another place. You know, well, generations have been going down there to the state fair. I've been there to the state fair.
Of course, it used to be a popular amusement park too. You know, we talked to people who took when they were little kids. Their parents took them to the amusement park. Now they've got grandchildren, and they say, we'd like to take our grandkids. So
of course.
You're right, there's a lot of nostalgia and history.
And that means that you've got a very sensitive project with a lot of people because they have personal interest, you know. Mine is to satisfy everybody. You know, that's what I do. I'm a creative guy. So there was never any thought of not having the speedway. I mean, I showed the speedway there, although it got stretched a little bit. But I didn't know enough. You know, how many races do you have? What condition is the track in? What condition is the grandstand in? I asked if somebody just please send me some photos, but I never got them. So I just had these Google Maps to go on and some old photographs. And I did find a Nashville Speedway site on the web too, which I got some videos off so I could trying to figure out where that tunnel was, and I still haven't been able to figure it out. Anyway, so yeah, I'm open 1,000%, besides being a country boy and a redneck and a Jimmy Johnson fan.
So that aside, but
he's
again,
got the best girls, I'm telling you. I had a hot pass.
He said in Talladega the prettiest girls flock around Jimmy Johnson. But again, Isaac,
including his wife.
So your general idea would be would it be private investments or partnership with Metro or some of both, or you're open to whatever?
I'm open to whatever comes. I just came here and, you know, I put the money for this and my partner Swan to do this. A lot of money went into getting
sounds
architects.
Like you'd be willing to sit down with me or Dean or the Metro officials and say, this is kind of some of my ideas, what are some of your ideas? Let's put them together and see what we might work out.
With Buck, I think we're meeting with some of the Metro people. He's arranged a meeting. We're going to meet with, I think, the guy who's head of some special Metro council that's been put together to look at new ideas.
Subcommittee, I think.
You know, something like that. We're going to meet him. I forget what his name is.
But you're wide open to ideas and input, and maybe mesh the ideas and see what might be worked out for the benefit of everybody. Yeah.
All right, we're going to take our first break of this particular pit pass. Stay with us. Isaac Tigrett coming up next. Swan Burris, his partner. We're going to talk to all of them and get a few more details on what looks like a pretty exciting little project. Stay with us.
From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams, along with Larry Woody, and one of our two special guests joining us in this segment, Mr. Swan Burris. Now, Swan, I don't know what kind of car you drive, but let me tell you, when you're in Nashville, if you need some help with the engines, you might want to go see the boys at USA Motor and Machine over on Cleveland Avenue. They'll take care of it.
I would love to.
What a sneaky way to get a
like
sponsor
that?
in.
We slide that right in there. Swan, welcome into the program. Now, Isaac Tigrett has this history. Founded Hard Rock, House of Blues, all this. You though, as a co-developer, bring your own set of special skills to this. Your history is more in sales, broadcasting, as a matter of fact. Broadcast sales, as I remember correctly.
Right.
And how did you wind up in on this project? What got you two together to do this?
Well, it went out that the Fair Board was looking for ideas for the fairgrounds. And I submitted an idea to a councilman, and I said, you know, I would think Music City would make a great thing to have music venues, primarily for the first, second, third tier, whatever tier you want to call them, the artist. And so he liked the idea, and I immediately got on the phone and called Isaac, and I said, look, there's this fairgrounds here, they're looking for ideas, they like the idea for music venues. I think you're the person that can help me put these ideas into some sort of structure. And that's how it kind of came about.
So you guys have worked together before?
We've known each other since we're 4 years old.
I would say they worked together before, Larry.
Yeah.
What do you think?
And the reception so far, as Isaac said, has been pretty favorable. There have been no doors slammed in your face at this point.
No, it's an idea,
Yeah.
and I can't emphasize that enough. It's a concept we came up with, we've developed, but in meeting with people, and one of the primary purposes of meeting with people is to get their input. And we've gotten input from exhibitors, we've gotten input from the Hotel Conventions Bureau, a lot of different people. And we're trying to, we want this thing to happen for music venues, but we also are sensitive to the needs of all the other things that the fairground stands for. And that could be racing, that's exhibitor space, it's fun, entertainment, and family oriented.
And flea market, Christmas village, those kind of things.
Exactly.
I think your general plan calls for incorporating all those in sort of a multi-purpose, multi-entertainment complex.
Exactly.
Including stock car racing.
Because they all feed toward the same end, right. And that's, entertainment and education for the public.
And again, the funding, we're talking off camera about the funding. Some of it would be private investment, maybe some with Metro partnership, but again, that's something down the road, and these things could be worked out in future negotiations. In other words, you're open to different suggestions from the city about what they would like to do.
Yes, in fact, some of the input that we've gotten is, okay, what do you need? Money. No. Want to know what we need and how we're going to make this work. Yeah. So yes, the private investment, obviously the city, the Hotel Conventions Bureau, anybody that's interested in making this work is what we're interested in. I was talking to Isaac yesterday, and we were throwing out the idea, well, what about Dollywood? Maybe they might be interested in this.
Sure.
And Craig Ross is the new president, just I think as of this month. So we would like to talk with them and get their input and see if their interest level.
That's one of the problems historically with the fairgrounds, with the people running the racetrack, has been the lease arrangement with Metro, which of course owns the property, the facilities. Would your proposal require a fairly long-term lease to make the kind of investments in it that you're talking about? Again, that's been one of the drawbacks with the racetrack. A lot of the promoters say we just can't do the improvements that we need to do on the track because of a limited lease. Any idea roughly how long-term lease you would need to arrange with the city to make this doable?
Well, I think anything you do with the fairgrounds is going to require a long-term lease.
Right. Simply because of the investment required.
The investment, and if you're going to make a commitment to it one way or the other, it's going to require a long-term lease. And so yes, it would have to be a long-term lease arrangement. And that would include everything that's, I think the exhibitors would want long-term leases. I think the racing people would want long-term leases. So yes, to answer your question, yeah, it would require a long-term lease.
And here's the tough part as we sit in a concept mode right now.
Right.
And that is the assumption. You know what happens when you assume?
Yeah.
But the assumption is that you guys would come in almost as a holding company, if you will, and then you could have your own departments to do the venues, the music, the food, the exhibitors, the hotel that you're talking about, the racetrack being another part of it, but all of it literally falling under one umbrella, hopefully, and not, well, we're gonna lease this, we're gonna have master lease, and we're gonna sublease this off over here and sublease this off over here.
No, we would want, if this whole entity is going to be to improve the fairgrounds, then there's got to be a congruent force behind the whole thing, and everything has to work in congruency. You can't just farm it out,
Piecemeal.
sublet it out,
Yeah.
because they may go in a direction that's not going to be beneficial to the fairgrounds. So yes, to answer your question, a holding company would be a great idea, would be our ideal situation for it. The other thing would be that whether or not the city would be in partnership or want to be, with minimal, financial risk. But does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Is there another project like this that you're aware of somewhere around the country that you could point to and say, this is kind of what we've got in mind here, and this is sort of how it's worked so far, another sort of a model somewhere, or is this completely new from the ground up?
No, it's not completely new from the ground up, simply because Isaac has done hard rock cafes all over the world, House of Blues, and the main reason I brought him in and to get me help, because I certainly couldn't do this, is because he knows marketing, merchandising, brand creating, restaurant business, entertainment business, and one thing you haven't mentioned in the thing would be the broadcast, the streaming that we're talking about too, which we think is going to be a big money maker also.
Would there be a conflict?
Obviously, we hope so too.
Would there be a conflict with stock car racing? Of course, it'd only be basically on a Saturday night, maybe not even every Saturday night. Do you think that all these ideas could work in concert with and keep stock car racing? Everything
can work if you're willing to make the adjustments to it. I mean, I'm just going to throw an idea out that we've kicked, and that is, okay, you've got a grandstand right now that's 15,000 seats, 15,000 people. Okay, is it the best grandstand in the world? Maybe not. Maybe yes. Okay, but maybe you incorporate that into a music center, etc., to accommodate stock car racing or racing of whatever kind, and also the music venue,
like an amphitheater, sort of amphitheater.
or somewhat enclosed, and an IMAX, because that's the concept that Isaac came up with, was the IMAX and the music center. But again, I can't stress this enough. This is an idea that we wanted to present. It's flexible, and we're flexible. We're not the final say, so we want to get the input from Metro. We want to get the councilman's input. We want as much input, and the musicians, the music industry. We do have a meeting with Dave Pomeroy with the Musicians Union. We want input.
You kind of answered part of my question. What is the next step? And you've already scheduled a meeting with some of the local musicians unions. You've at least made inroads with some of the Metro councilmen, a representative. What is the next step? Where do you go from here? Do you try to arrange a meeting, say, with the mayor or with the council to kind of put your general outline in front of them?
We're being guided. We're being guided by the meetings that have been set up from other people. I think the primary thing that we're going to have to ultimately answer is, what do we want? How are we going to finance it? And what's the next? That's the step. That's the important step. We're providing the ideas. We're providing the concept. We're trying to, work with our concept and shift things around and make it work. And we really wanted, we wanted to meet with the racing people to see what they said, and because they're an important part.
Is there a time frame you're working under? Any kind of loose time frame? We need to know if this thing is doable, say by this time next year or this time next summer. Is there a time frame before your people start wandering off in other directions?
Well, in the next few minutes would be nice, It cuts down our.
Yeah, obviously, you'd like to get this thing going as quickly as possible.
To some people's credits, and I don't want to throw names around, but to people's credits, I think the most important thing for us right now is to formulate the plan after we've got some input, et cetera, and say, okay, how are we going to pull this off with money, investors, or what have you? And that's why I said, we'd be amenable to looking for people like Dollywood. They tried to come here to put a water park. So, and I think what I read is they're looking for ideas. Well, we got an idea. We'd like to talk to Craig.
And possibly
Hey,
even
Greg.
bringing, even maybe long term, I know we're looking way down the road, might bring NASCAR back. I know NASCAR would love to get back in the Nashville market, you know, for a ton of fans around here, also great, you know, great market area, NASCAR market area.
Well,
so
also,
that might be something down the road too.
ARCA, American Racing Club of America.
Yeah.
I mean, they would be an important
Right.
feature, and they want to come in here.
Sure.
They do. They're what I read, their primary concerns, they want safety features, catch net and something for the pit. So they would be important to make racing happen here. I think racing can happen with or without. NASCAR would be beautiful.
On some level, might not get a cup race, but maybe one of the second or third
Whatever.
tier races.
But I think ARCA would be, and I may not even be pronouncing it right.
Yeah, on the money.
Okay.
And they would come tomorrow, as Joe knows. They would be here tomorrow if they had a
Right,
place to race.
and Grisham just signed a contract with the fair for 2013. They run 4 racing venues. Right now, Pensacola, Mobile, north of Atlanta. I can't think of the 4th one.
Supposedly here.
But there's a lot of
This was the 5th one.
there's a lot of opportunities out there if you had a facility to host them.
Right, and
Racing
like I said, if we can incorporate everything for racing, exhibitors, and entertainment, walking trails. Now I would like to say this. There is another proposal out there that was done by, I believe it was Markin Consulting Firm.
Right.
It's an excellent proposal, and I encourage everybody to read that also, because Markin addressed a lot of the things that we're addressing. Planting, beautifying this area, a walking trail, the racetrack, how to improve it. Okay, it was a great proposal. We would like to talk with those people. We'd like to get those ideas, incorporate them into ours, and make this thing work so that we've got a place that's world-class destination.
The elephant in the living room might be the state fair. Where would that fit in, or does it?
The state fair, as I understand it, and I could be speaking out of turn, but I think the state fair is currently set up in the parking lot area.
That's what's left of it.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that forces parking into people's neighbors, and that's a revenue generator from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, as Isaac said, there's 40 acres out there that could be reclaimed, built up, taken care of the flood issue, and the fairgrounds could be put there. But yes, that's an important part also that we've got to address.
So that's another one of those elements that's it's neither pushed off the table nor locked in. It's open to negotiation to keep preserving the state.
We don't hold the key to the negotiations. All we've done is we've come up with a concept that we think is flexible and trying to be flexible to satisfy the needs of the fairgrounds primarily. The music venue thing that I came up with was an idea to make money. And based on the information that's available online, music makes a lot of money. Butch Bearden said to us, I think these venues that currently downtown brought in $330,000 a couple of weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
And when you talk dollars, Butch's eyes light up. Don't
Yes.
they? But again, to be clear, all this is open now, and you haven't ruled out the possibility of having keeping the state fair in there if people want it. You know, as Joe knows, the local recent referendum was most Davidson Countyans, Metro taxpayers, favored keeping the fair at the site if it's feasible.
70%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
We want to work with the Metro Council, we want to work with the Fair Board, we want to work with all the entities. The goal is this. My idea that's become Isaac's idea was to do something that we thought was positive for this area.
Yeah.
And it makes money. We feel very comfortable about what we've got that's going to make money, and we can use the pro formas from Hard Rocks and House of Blues. We can use all a number of things. We can use racing figures. We can use exhibitors' figures. I mean, they bring in a lot of money, about $1.2 million, so forth. Nashville Christmas Village, I don't know if you know this or not, $10 million to Vanderbilt from the sale, and I think that was a 10-day event in 10 days. So these are all important elements that needs to be addressed, and we're flexible.
It can make money for the charities. It can return the investment for the investors, and it can make money for Metro. Metro making money on a project.
And preserve some of the historical, traditional old events out there, like stock car racing, your flea market, Christmas Village at the State Fair at the same time.
Yeah, and quite frankly, the people at the State Fair that are Buck Dozier's team, they've done a great job, I think, personally. My limited knowledge, but I'm very impressed with them and what they've done.
I want to say thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Getting good information. We'll get more information coming up in just a second. And when we're done, we may well go down to the batter's box over at 43 Hermitage Avenue and grab a little breakfast maybe. I don't know. It'll be lunchtime by the time we get finished, and I guarantee you they'll have a good one. That's a batter's box.
Swan's buying, right?
Oh,
yes.
Isaac?
Where's Isaac?
We'll be back with more right after this.
Thank you, guys.
Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short track door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com.
And welcome back, everybody, to the final segment of Pit Pass this week. I'm Joe Williams, Larry Woody, and back for this final segment, Isaac Tigrett, who is one of the co-developers of Project Nashville Skyline, the concept plan of what we can do at the fairgrounds. And Isaac, we've talked a lot about everything, and I'm just going to ask you straight out.
Go ahead.
One of the concerns that we had when we saw the first project was the racetrack that's been there forever.
Yes.
Is there going to be a racetrack in this concept plan now?
I don't see how, no matter what other people may want in the city or the government or this or that, and bless them for their own ideas. But this, the fans are the ones that have kept this property from being developed, because there's such a high emotional value. There's many fans out there. I mean, 3,500 people walk into the courthouse. Not that many people go to the Baptist church in Jackson, where I come from, you know, and in this day and age when everyone is so self-involved, to see a group together get like that, I'd be scared of them too, you know, and that's obviously a vocal group that want to keep racing, which has been there since early days, there in some form or another.
And
so
as pointed out, oh, excuse me.
Go ahead. No,
as was pointed out off camera before we started this segment, fans are fans, and if you can draw 15,000 fans in for a race on Saturday night, they might wander on up the hill and check out some other restaurants or venues.
The whole music scene and racing have been married for a long time. It's nothing new. They're huge fans, especially of Nashville music. So I think it makes a lot of sense. But I don't see how that place can be redeveloped without the maintaining racing there, and there may be some improvements on it. There may be, I mean, unfortunately when I was looking at the drawings I couldn't tell from Google the condition of the track. But there's a possibility, who knows, maybe we can get NASCAR to come back. Maybe we can, with this new development and all this sort of thing, maybe we can attract some bush races, maybe we can get this and get some other type of racing there and developing it. But I think that the main thing that people have to understand is there's so much nostalgia on racing and that place, and the fairgrounds staying there, and in its present form. It's so nostalgic that I think that one would be out of your mind not to listen to what the people have to say, the people want.
As Joe knows, there's a long time been a proposal for a stock car racing museum, which, you know, I guess you probably ought to put the project together before we start adding on to it.
Exactly.
Well,
but things like that are...
if you go to Nashville-Skyline.com, the little website has the whole thing. We put in there that there's a whole Nashville Raceway museum to celebrate the racing of that site and in Nashville.
Yeah, you got to remember, people were racing automobiles in Nashville before they were racing automobiles in Indianapolis or Daytona.
Yes.
Nashville has a longer racing heritage than Indianapolis.
Absolutely. So. And it's it has to be respected whether you like it or not, because not everybody is a racing fan. But I think that it has to be maintained on the site in one form or another, and maybe upgraded, uplifted, you know.
And again, all this is very exciting, you know, for racing fans, Metro taxpayers, and everybody. What is the next step? We were talking, you know, earlier about step 2. The story is starting to spread now through the Nashville media. The response so far has been favorable. What is the next step, Isaac, that you and your partners are going to take?
Well, you know, this is a concept. You know, I'm a concept fella, and I was asked to my partner Swan to come up with a concept for this. I did the best I could from a distance. I've come here. It's very flexible. If people want this, we're moving it that way. We're talking to everybody. We'll be talking with some city officials this week. We'll be talking with hopefully the Fair Board, which is another complex issue in the mix. With Mr. Horton, I did see him the other day. He's a real nice guy, and you know, so we're going to listen to what everybody has to say. You know, I said on the show the other day, somebody said, well, what do you want out of it? And I said, I'll take health insurance, man. That's the way I feel about it.
It's a good health plan.
That's right, I need it.
But seriously, you are a racing fan, as we were talking earlier. You've been to Talladega, you know you're racing, and that's part of, it sounds like it's part business proposal and part from the heart, too.
It's all from the heart. Yeah. You know, and I do want health insurance. I'd be happy just with that. This is a labor of love. You know, I'm a Jacksonian. My family's been in Tennessee for almost 200 years. I've grown up in Nashville. I've lived here, Memphis, so forth and so on. And I'm in the music business, in the entertainment business, in the restaurant business. So it seemed like a good marriage. And I was a labor of love, period. One
thing we didn't touch on, which may be the most important thing, this is a pretty good economic deal for the city if it could be pulled off the way you guys are kind of looking at it. I mean, we're talking about jobs, tax base, that kind of thing.
Well, the main thing is it will make money. It'll pay for itself.
Money for everybody. You know, you, the employees, the city, everybody.
Absolutely. And I think it'll bring more tourists in. It's a tourist destination. It will be a great adjunct to the new Civic Center because all those people need a destination to go to hear music. And I think you can turn it into a regional draw, like a Bourbon Street, or sort of certainly better than Beale Street, which I wasn't the most excited thing about that, but at least they created an entertainment zone, and they do have some great stuff going down there. And of course, Bourbon Street pulls from 200 miles every weekend. 70% of the people I live in New Orleans. I don't know how I survived that, but you know, that's the draw. So I think you're going to draw a lot of people to that site, thousands of people a week.
It could be a destination venue, not just local people wandering in and out, but as you say, drawing from a lot of people. And I think that's what made Butch Spiriton's eyes light up when you mentioned that. Butch likes visitors.
Well, I think this could add a lot of visitors to Nashville, and therefore a lot of money for a lot of business.
One last question for you.
Yes, sir.
You've developed some of the best-known concepts in the world. And I want you to think back to when the Hard Rock Cafe was a concept in your mind. And think back to when the House of Blues.
I just wanted to meet girls.
Well,
I was 22 years old.
That's the concept.
That's the concept, yeah. But the concept of the House of Blues. Looking back on those two, ultra successful concepts.
Yes.
How you felt about them going in then. How does that compare with how you feel going into this concept here now?
These were independents, and they were great brands, and they were very powerful, and I was blessed to celebrate American culture all over the world. You know, opening in Tokyo and in Mexico and Stockholm and here and there and all these different places. It was really an honor in a way, and you may think it's glamorous, but it's an 18-hour-a-day thankless job. The House of Blues was extremely controversial because it was dealing with African American culture and trying to raise the consciousness of their amazing contribution in music and art. And there was a lot of people that were fighting me on that. There was a lot of people fighting the hard rockers in those early days who were just a bunch of hippies, as you can still, I haven't quite grown out of it yet. But this is a no-brainer. I mean, it's already there. How many millions of people have gone to that site over the last 200 years? Who knows? It has total recognition as it sits. It needs to be rehabilitated. It's a wonderful site, and it can be done where everyone wins. If everybody will just sit down and compromise a little bit here and a little bit there and not fight each other on it, because it belongs to everybody. Not just to, you know, a bunch of people downtown or this side of town or that side of town. It belongs to the whole of everybody.
And so far in your early exploring, you haven't run into a wall that says this is a deal killer. I can't overcome this. So far, everything looks reasonably doable.
I don't know. People do talk behind your back. You know, I don't know what they're thinking.
But to your face,
you
haven't run into that.
You know, Buck Dozier and his crew were absolutely. He turned to me, and you know, he's a he's a tough guy, you know, and he looked at me. I was scared to death of the proposal, and he said, "Mr. Tigrett, I don't say this very often, but that was brilliant." And I said, "Well, that's why I came to town." So that was a nice start. That gave me a feeling of great confidence I was on the right track with what people wanted and so forth. I'm learning more every day.
And also, this is Buck Dozier's baby. He's in charge of that facility right now for Metro, so he's not going to dabble in something if he doesn't think it's got a whole lot of potential. He wouldn't waste his time and your time.
Very supportive, very supportive.
Right.
I want to thank you for coming in.
My
you
pleasure.
and Mr. Swan Burris both.
My pleasure.
This has been a great. This has been good, Larry.
Hopefully, we'll be having a whole lot more chats with.
I think we will.
And his people.
You know?
Yeah.
I think so, and it
I drink scotch.
Joe buys. So
Wait. I would have thought being a Tennessean, you would have had a
Jack Daniels sometimes if I'm really in trouble.
no, I believe in coming weeks and months we're going to be hearing a whole lot more about this.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for coming in. And
honored.
The biggest thing that we really wanted to get covered today, after everything broke yesterday, was the racetrack, and the man has just told us this facility has got to have a racetrack. So
he's looking for an announcing job, Isaac, in case you haven't figured it out.
After
he's doing
30
good.
years.
I
don't know if they'd want me back. Speaking of racetracks, got to say hey to the folks up at Highland Rim as they're wrapping up their rules meetings, I guess, this week and getting ready for that March opener. We'll give you more details on when they start racing at Highland Rim. Boy, it'd be great. It's going to be great to have them back and open and running again. And as always, racing is just strong in Middle Tennessee, and it's going to be a great season. I don't care where you wind up. Time to say thank you for coming out and joining us today. For Larry Woody and our special guests, Isaac Tigrett and Swan Burris, I'm Joe Williams. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Pit Pass.